Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open in New York City with a 17-year-old girl fleeing from Manhattan to the Bronx. Anne's father owns the largest gun manufacturing company in the city, so she's running away because she's something of a pacifist. The Bronx has been ruled by a colorful collection of gangs ever since the cops gave up all attempts to restore law and order. The moment she arrives, Anne is attacked by roller skating hockey players dressed in whatever the costume department had lying around in bulk. They're called the Zombies despite the movie having an actual zombie gang, and their leader is named Golem, but later it's changed to Golan. He sends them to kidnap pretty blonde things when another gang arrives called the Riders, who look like they actually have some self-respect. They're bikies who follow a 17-year-old named Trash, and their weapon of choice is a sharpened bat, which is better than a hockey stick, I suppose. The two sides get into a brawl in which Trash kills people by elbowing them in the face and spends most of his time in slow motion. There's only 4 members of the Riders here, including the mustachioed leather-clad Blade, who's the most loyalist of friends. The second-in-command Ice dresses like the guy who abuses Forrest Gump's girlfriend and isn't a very good fighter or even smart for that matter. The 4th Rider is Hawk, who is also the movie's stunt coordinator and deploys side-mounted blades from his bike, but they only trip people over. While watching Trash take on like 5 of these Fruit Loops at once, the director's daughter instantly falls in love with him and begins flaring her nostrils. Trash then swaggers over to Anne with an odd sachet of his hips that he carried over from real life and says, "What the hell are you doing on my turf?" She tells him about running away from Manhattan, so the next time we see her she has her own bike alongside the 17 other riders. They pull up to the Manhattan Bridge, where one of their members has been murdered by a gang who roll around in 1930s hot rods but dress like pimps from the 70s.
Stay where you are.
One of the members, Leech, looks like the valet parking at a heavy metal concert, and Trash prances over to the leader to see why he killed Soggy Steve. The Ogre claims to have killed the Rider because he was working for the Manhattan police, as they found a tracking device on him. Trash is like, okay, fair enough, while this whole conversation happens with some dude whacking away at a drum set in the background. The Ogre's girlfriend is called the Witch, but she doesn't actually have any powers, and all of the Tigers leave, calling everyone jive turkeys. Riders begin infighting as Ice believes the Tigers planted the device, but face down Fred was actually working for Anne's father, Mr. Fisher. Since that failed, he sends a police force of vigilantes in a helicopter to track her down, but it turns into a truck the next time we see them. They follow Riders hoping they'll lead them to the daughter, but Blade climbs onto their truck and spray paints their windscreen with the only word he knows how to spell. With his police force getting bullied out of the Bronx, Fisher sends a mercenary named Hammer, but this guy is a complete psycho with no real allegiances.
I don't care about politics. I don't care about anything. I believe in nothing.
He walks into the Rider clubhouse disguised as a postman, where he gives Speedy a speedy shotgun blast to the chest. Hammer also shoots his stairwell-dwelling girlfriend Sandy, whose names we only learned from their obituaries, and plants one of the Tigers' rings on them. He could easily kill Blade, but wants to frame the Ogre's gang, so drops a smoke bomb at his feet and runs away instead. The Riders are unable to find the intruder because Hammer leaps out of a 3rd-story window because he apparently has bionic knees. We then witness a Rider's funeral, which involves cremating your dead loved ones in the middle of the street and dragging them out of the way when a car comes. They must stand here for hours until the bodies turn to ashes, then collect them and ride down to the Brooklyn Bridge for a final farewell. Unfortunately, we've got southeasterly winds, so the fools are just tossing fistfuls of the lovely couple back into their own faces. The gang locate the golden ring that Trashbag recognizes as the Tigers, but he's skeptical that the Ogre would do this. Most of the Riders rally behind Ice and assuming the Tigers are responsible, except for Blade, who's as loyal as his dubbing is goofy.
I agree with Trash.
These Bronx Warriors never seem to actually be in the Bronx, and Anne tells Trash that on her 18th birthday she will inherit her father's gun-selling empire. If she returns to Manhattan, she'll be forced to be evil or something, but would rather stay here with Sergeant Strut and his weird speeches on being born dead.
We were born dead.
On their way home, the pair get ambushed by the rollerblading zombies, who kidnap Anne and take her back to their headquarters. Golem chains her up in the dojo and forces her to watch his Cobra Kai Mighty Ducks training, which is torture on the senses. 4 zombies with pillows for fists lay into Trash, but the moment they leave he just gets up and walks off without a mark on his face. He tells the Riders about the limp-wristed gang stealing his girlfriend, but only Hawk and some big dude, unfortunately named Hole, agrees to help. Blade does as well, but Trash leaves him here to watch Ice and make sure he doesn't rally the disgruntled Riders against the boss. The 3 then venture to Ogre for help, but on the way get jumped by a gang of rejected boy band members with metal bowler hats. The Clockwork Orange fans are called the Iron Men and kick the snot out of our boys, but for some reason Trash doesn't help. Their uncredited leader allows the Riders to pass because she has a soft spot for Trash, who's got some soft spots of his own. Continuing their journey, the 3 riders get ambushed by the actual zombies next, but they're just a very dirty gang called the Scavengers. They shove holes in Hole with wooden stakes, then attack Trash and Hawk, but the two just kill like a dozen of them no problem. In the end, Trash throws his weapon into the last mutant's back, but then he just leaves it behind for whatever reason. He saunters on down to the Tigers' compound, which is the old smallpox hospital on Roosevelt Island, because none of this is in the Bronx. Simultaneously, Hammer has recruited a local man named Hot Dog to get him a meeting with Ice because he knows he's prime traitor material. This man, named after a sandwich, has had altercations with the riders before, so he's happy to help poop on their parade and pulls up outside of their hideout.
Looky, look. Hot Dog.
Ice goes out to see what he wants and has a conversation with Hammer about overthrowing Trash, but gets overheard by Brait. He gives him one of the gang's signature pointy sticks to plant on a Tiger member, so Mustachio tries to warn his boss. However, on the way he gets jumped by the mutant zombie scavengers who beat him nearly to death and use his body for bait. Trash and Hawk sneak inside the Tigers' headquarters, where the Ogre rules from his silk throne with the witch sitting on the floor. When the riders get caught trespassing, Hammer impales the guard with a pole so that the Tigers think the riders did it, then runs away. He's one of the only people in the Bronx with a gun because he brought it from Manhattan and shoots scavengers on his way home for target practice. Meanwhile, Trash gets captured by the Tigers and taken to Ogre, but he's no dummy and is immediately convinced that Hammer is trying to frame them.
You brought Hammer into my territory?
They team up together, but Ogre only brings along his girlfriend for protection because I guess the hot rod pimps were already booked. First, the three find the baited Blade, who survived just long enough to say that Ice has betrayed them and might have lived longer, but Trash snaps his neck. Suddenly, mutants leap out at Ogre in his pretty blue blouse, but he uses a walking cane and leather-clad kicks to batter them around. Another group jump the witch, who uses a whip and fountain pen nibs on her knuckles, but no spells that would earn her such a nickname. Finally, it's the rider's turn to prove himself. However, the swarm of bums get the better of him, so Trash needs Ogre to save him. They kill the rest of them together before rejoining with the girl in a shower curtain and making their way to Golem's dojo. Everyone else is sneaking while Trash saunters along before the Ogre steps right into the lion's den to challenge Golem to a fight. He's happy to accept, and the two have a duel of walking stick versus hockey stick, but it's mostly a one-sided beatdown. Ogre is just too smooth with it, and when he gets disarmed, pulls out the Tiger-style kung fu to match his same themed gang and throne room decor. Golem uses a small knife that he gets reversed into his own back while simultaneously having his head put through the window of embarrassment. Two leotards attack Ogre, followed by the rest of the zombies, who get their name from still fighting despite no longer having orders to do so. Fortunately, they're useless punching bags incapable of harming anybody, and Trash frees Anne from her chains before searching for Ice. He's trying to sneak out the back door when coming across Hot Dog, so deploys the boot knife of instant death and kicks him in the hot dog. Trash finds Ice, who tries to justify everything he's done by saying that the city girl has compromised the leader's ability to govern. That doesn't work, so he lashes out with a piece of wood but seems to have forgotten that he can't fight and gets laid out by a teenager. Trash knocks him from a ledge to land on the spike of convenience, then should have said something like "Ice of you to stick around," but just walks off.
You got your gray matter in your butt.
The victors return to the Tigers HQ, where the pimps bake a cake shaped like Manhattan to celebrate Anne's 18th birthday. During this time, Hammer leads a full-force raid on the Bronx with helicopters, horse-mounted flamethrower troops, and massive grappling hooks. They ride straight into the fortress and begin setting off their flamers into the faces of scattering pimps and terrified toots. Despite being under orders to retrieve the girl without being harmed, Hammer orders no survivors because the man just likes killing. We see Hawk fighting alongside Leech, who's karate chopping throats, and the witch whipping people, but she dies when shot in the back. The Ogre's death is just as lackluster when he attempts to run away from a soldier with a gun in a straight line, so is shot and has his blouse completely ruined. He then staggers over to his throne and sits down to enjoy a smoke while letting himself be consumed by the fire. Next to go is Anne when she leaps in front of gunfire to save Trash, and her father's whole operation is ruined by a guy named after a tool. She dies in Trashbag's arms, who also gets hit with a flamethrower, but the retardant man just shrugs off the fire. He picks up one of the ridiculously oversized harpoon guns and sends it through the chest of Hammer, who's been standing in the same spot the entire fight. Presumably the last surviving member of the Riders then drags his girlfriend's killer through the Bronx behind his bike. And the movie ends.
I love it.